All right, good morning, everyone. My name is John Reich. I'm a pre-construction manager here with Beck, and I work pretty exclusively in the healthcare group here. Occasionally, I'll jump into the normal commercial side, but I'm pretty much dedicated to doing healthcare work. So what I'm here to talk about today is, obviously the webinar is about estimating and BIM and integrated projects. Integrated projects for us means that Beck is both the architect and the constructor of the project, and that's really where we target most of our healthcare work. So what I'm going to specifically talk about is more of a collaborative pre-con, how we work together between pre-construction, construction, and designers to go through the pre-construction process and generate accurate estimates for the owner and track those estimates going forward. So hopefully we get through. It'll be pretty informal. So if you have questions, feel free to send them in. I'll try to get to them when I can. And hopefully we'll get out of here, 30, 40 minutes maybe. So biggest thing is how to play nicely with others. That's kind of the big gist of collaborative work here. So pre-construction services, what we typically do, estimating, we'll do some scheduling, constructability reviews, define scopes of work, manage the owner expectations, assessing design options, basically coming up with different ideas on how to build things. Biggest thing we have to do is fill in the blanks. What's not shown on the drawings, we're still responsible for it. So we need to find a way to make sure that those are shown. And part of it is somewhat kind of predicting the future. We filling in the blanks is a large part of that, but we need to be able to tell where the market's going, what construction costs are going to be, and how we're going to be able to build it 8 months, 10 months, a year, 2 years down the road. Collaboration, pretty self-explanatory. Everyone knows what that is, but it's basically a bunch of people working together towards a singular goal, and you're trying to improve the efficiency of the whole group above and beyond what you can do yourself. So collaborative pre-construction with us, we typically try to get everyone involved, including down to the subs, very, very early. Usually we try to bring on subs in a design build or design assist role. Design build's preferable in some of the more complex systems like the mechanical, electrical systems. Design assist would be more curtain wall type, maybe some exterior cladding. We've had some success with that. And maybe drywall, things like that. But basically, we want to have everyone involved early, owner, designers, contractor, and subs. We want to share all of our information. We're completely transparent, so we distribute line item budgets to everyone. We distribute a full detailed schedule, and the biggest thing that we find difficulty in is making sure that everyone understands what the design intent is. It is that's the most difficult thing to get across to everyone. Designers, when they try to describe their design intent, the language that they use is a little different than what constructors would use, what owners would use. So that's where we have the most difficulty. Schedule and budget are pretty straightforward. Budget's a number and schedule's dates, so that usually makes it a little bit easier. And then biggest thing everyone has to keep in mind and be cognizant of is all decisions are made for the good of the overall project. So it isn't about benefiting your bottom line. It isn't about benefiting making just the awesome design or make something a very beautiful building. It's overall project. So all those things, obviously everyone's bottom line is part of that, but you aren't doing something just to help yourself. You're always cognizant of how that's going to impact every other trade and everyone else on the job. And the biggest thing that we try to go for is value engineering is kind of a bad word for us. We don't like value engineering. We don't want to do it. We want to design right the first time, and the biggest tool we use for that is target value design. So biggest thing is you're always pricing a moving target. Not that easy. Things are constantly changing, so you've got to be pretty quick on your toes. We can identify and address problems early. Biggest things we do one of the big things that we do is co-location. We have construction, pre-con, and designers all sit together, within a few feet of each other if possible, and kind of lower those barriers to getting feedback between the parties. The biggest thing is once you get comfortable with the group, you can start really getting into each other's workflows. I jump into design meetings all the time just to hear what's going on and see how they're thinking, and frequently we're able to stop, or redirect design efforts, or they can redirect what we're thinking in pre-con and construction, just based on hearing us having conversations about it. And we obviously, since we are both the designer and the CM on the project, we obviously want to protect the interests of both sides. And this is the advertising our value. That's one of the biggest things that we have an issue with, and I'll show you some examples of ways that we're showing that to owners. But at the end of the day, owners typically will look at us and say, well, yes, you delivered a project on the budget, but everyone does that. What's the value? So I'll show you some ways that we've been able to show that. Value engineering, this is typically the way it works. You go through the conceptual phase, schematic phase, design development, then finally the constructor gets the drawings, starts looking at them, finds cost overruns, finds constructability issues, and you go through this whole rework cycle between construction documents and design development documents. There's some severe issues with that in terms of a lot of work's already been done, having to do a lot of rework. This is kind of illustrating that. These are basic projected architectural costs. So you're going to spend 5% of your architecture fee at the conceptual phase, 20% schematic, 35% design development. So you basically spent 60% of your design costs before you even start getting any feedback, and that's really not very efficient. So what we're trying to do is move that back earlier, to make all our design decisions earlier, so that by the time we get to design development, we have basically vetted out a lot of these problems. We have good pricing, we have good constructability reviews, and we're able to move that much earlier in the cycle where we have not committed all these costs to design yet. So target value design, it really is not, a lot of people think of target value design as just basically throwing darts and assigning random values, but that's really not what it is. What we're trying to do is reduce the rework that we show in traditional method where we're fully designed and we're having to redesign something. We're not going for expected. We actually take our expected cost and then we try to set a target, an aggressive target below that. And sometimes we hit it, sometimes we don't. But the idea is to get everyone thinking about ways to reduce costs. Biggest thing, we have to have cross-functional teams. We have to have that sub-involvement. We have to have field guys. We have to have designers. We have to have constructors, PMs, everyone. Because some of our best ideas come from guys in the field. Some great ideas come from guys in the design team. So the more people involved in more different areas of the project, you can get some really good ideas. This is just kind of showing the same thing we showed earlier. It's the McLamy curve, just showing as your ability to impact cost goes down, your cost to make those design changes goes up. And traditionally, we're right at that intersection, and it's really not very efficient for anyone. So if we can move those design decisions earlier, obviously we can have a greater impact on the costs. So target value design. First item is, when do we set the target budget? And typically, we try to set the target budget when we get budget approval. So when we go to the owner and say, here's your concept, here's your total project budget, we usually set a target 5%, 5 to 10% below that as our target, and that's how we break everything down. What should the target value be? That's kind of what I was going for. We generally go for 5% below our overall GMP, projected GMP, but that can differ from job to job, and it also differs from trade to trade. Obviously, mechanical costs, we're going to set a target that's a little more aggressive than, say, flooring, because there's not as much opportunities there. How often do we update the budget? update monthly at a minimum, but you should be very cognizant at all times of where you are in the budget. Everyone that's on that specific scope, particularly in that component team, which we'll talk about in just a second, everyone should know exactly where they are with the budget. So if you go and ask anyone on the team, how are we doing on budget, they should all be able to give at least a reasonably educated answer. And who's responsible for managing the budget? Obviously, everyone on the project. They all together, it is a true team effort. Everyone needs to be equally responsible. Everyone needs to feel like they have a strong say in where we are on the budget and how we're using it. And then the biggest thing is you can't ever exceed the target budget, or exceed the budget. If you find something that needs to be added or is requested to be added, you can't just add that in. You have to allocate where you're going to add it from. That can either be contingency costs, or you have to find a savings that you're going to generate somewhere else. So if you want to upgrade the curtain wall system, you've got to downgrade some of the other exterior skin elements, do some horse trading like that. But the main thing is everyone needs to be fully aware that that number is a hard ceiling. You can't ever go over. So tracking, this is a sheet that we use as a method of tracking. Obviously, I've hidden some of the columns, but this is our monthly updates. And we break down into some pretty significant detail. This is a project I'll talk about in a few minutes, the Cox Health bed tower project. We go from our original budget, and we continue estimating monthly as we go through it. And for this one, we actually tracked all of the owner costs as well. So we tracked medical equipment, we tracked their contingency, inspection costs, all of that as we went through. And so everyone was very aware that where we were in the budget at all times, and worked to make sure that we stayed underneath that 130 million. Oh, let me go back to that real quick. One of the things on the bottom of this that you don't really see is the level of detail. We have detailed line items for all of this, and we track everything by bid packages for construction. So from day one, we knew what we were targeting for concrete, and we tracked that through the life of the project, what we were targeting for drywall, mechanical, electrical, et cetera. And so it is not a just, hey, we're at 98 million overall, that's where we want to be. It was we have a $1 million wood blocking package. We have a $6 million curtain wall package. And so we tracked every individual item and tracked those variances individually. So it is very granular in terms of tracking the budget. The best way that we do this tracking is in component teams. We actually get subs, designers, the GC, everyone in the room working together. So we'll have an MEP group, interiors group, structure, envelope. All of that reports up to the main group of management that tracks the overall project. But this is kind of the work groups that they solve MEP problems. Anything that's going to affect other trades, they report up to the core team. Any kind of big wins or problems, they report that up to the core team, so that the core team's always aware of what's going on, but the details are taken care of by the individual component teams or cluster groups. And this is the typical sheet that we use for those meetings. So you can see they're tracking actual budget, individual line items over on this box on the left-hand side, issues being processed. So that's just what they're talking about in the various in the meetings. Action items. So we actually assign action items to specific people and track when they're due and when they're completed, and actually track their percentage that they're hitting. We want them to be able to be accountable for what they have and have not been able to complete. This box down here, it kind of got cut off, but innovations, these are just basically throw things at the wall and see what sticks. These are just the wild and crazy ideas that we want to explore on the project. So that's general collaborative pre-con overview. So now we'll start talking about some specific projects. Methodist Mansfield, this one wasn't referenced in the invite, but I thought it was a good project to talk about. It is a bed tower project that we're working on here in just south of Dallas-Fort Worth. It is a very complex project. we are both doing an overbuild of an existing hospital and undermining and building a new basement on a previous, it was a slab on crawl space, and we're excavating that out and building a new basement. So we had to excavate about 15 feet, 15 or 16 feet below the existing crawl space. So it was quite interesting. Also, we're working in the building itself. We're doing an expansion of the pharmacy, redoing their dietary, adding 2 new ORs, renovating their central sterile, all while keeping the existing hospital up and running. So it's a very detailed and complicated project, a lot of moving parts. Project overview, this kind of shows where we are. The bed towers here, we've got a couple of different areas that we're actually affecting, and dietary is right over here. This is kind of where the pharmacy and everything is, right in this area in the basement. So we're all over the campus, and it's pretty chopped up. This is just showing this is the basement expansion that we are doing. So this is all new basement in the green, undermining the existing hospital. New front entry to the bed tower. This is all new expansion that we're putting for Indo, PACU. This is the new bed tower. So essentially our volume is going to be $70 million. We started the pursuit in January 2013. We went through a 3-step selection process. It was the standard RFQ, RFP. So RFQ went out, shortlisted, RFQ went out, and from the RFP they actually shortlisted down to 2. And this owner is very forward-thinking, very collaborative, and he asked us to basically spend 2 weeks working with the designers, and they evaluated how well we worked with the design team. So we had to, with the design team's help, come up with a schedule, budget, phasing, all of that. But the number we provided, we obviously had to be competitive, but the big thing they were looking for was how well we collaborated. And our number actually came up, we were a little bit higher, and we still got the job because they felt we worked better with the team. At the end of the day, they are bought out now, and they're building in construction right now. And we were 2.4% off the original budget, so we budgeted in March of 2013, and we went to GMP in April of 2014, and so we were about 2.5% over the course of the year, which I thought was pretty good. So during the RFC phase, this is what we got from the architects, and using the profiler, our software here that we use for most of these conceptual estimating, this is what we generated for the owner, and we're able to show a pretty detailed model of what we estimated and assign cost to that. And so this is the interior, all the interior rooms that we assigned to it. So the level of detail we're able to get to is pretty deep. The next one is the Cox Health Bed Tower, and this one is I've been very heavily involved in. We started that in January of 13 as well, and it's $130 million total project cost. $100 million of that is construction. This owner is very experienced with design build and integrated projects, and he's very demanding. Basically has the mindset of if he asks an architect for something and the architect doesn't say no, we own it, and vice versa. So it's pretty difficult to work with him, but he makes us do a better job, and so it's a good experience to work with him. As I said, this is a fully integrated back-to-back job, so we have architecture and construction. We've worked with them multiple times. We created the master plan in 2008, so we kind of already knew this was coming. Budget tracking, we've done a pretty good job on that. February 2013, we got a board approval package pulled together, and we set the board approval. We got funding of $130 million. August of 2014, so this month, we are sitting at $129.9, and the biggest plus we can show from that is that we've incorporated $2.3 million of owner requests, items that were not part of the original scope that he asked, hey, can we do this? So we've managed to to incorporate all that into the project budget. And if you actually take out those owner requests as additional requests, we're within 0.25% of the original budget about a year and a couple months later. So our GMP was almost dead to nuts on what we get at a conceptual estimate, which I feel is very, very tight. So this is basically where we were in our board approval package. This is my D-profiler model we built, and the March 2014 is the rendering that we went to GMP on. And so the building pretty much, there's a few elements that have changed, but the key is that we knew what we were building in February 2014. We were able to show a basic model of that in D-profiler and show that to the owner, show that to our design team, show that to everyone. Obviously this was made with the design team's help, but that's kind of the reference that we always were able to go back to if we ever had questions about what was in scope, what was not. And then the project I'm currently working on is the Texas Health Hughley Hospital. This is a $95 million bed tower addition, and $70 million of that is construction. Again, it is a Beck integrated project. It's the first for this client, so we're doing our best to make sure that we make it a good experience for them. This one has 136 patient beds across 4 floors, and then we got a shelf floor and then a ground floor outpatient suite. This project's been interesting because of the speed at which it's been changing and the multiple iterations we've gone through on the project, that we were able to quickly assess and price and show the owner these options in D-profiler, and I'll show you some examples of how we do that in a few minutes. But one of the things we found when we first went in and presented on the project, we had the actual bed tower expansion was at a different location on the campus. They redrew the floodplain, and that obviously forced us, we were in the floodplain, so that forced us to change to a different location, so we were able to incorporate that and show the owner the impacts very quickly. The floodplain also required that we build a new cup, which we incorporated into the project. We added a new entry to their MOBs because of the new location. We added radiology, and then one of the things that we've been working towards, and I think we've got a pretty good handle on it now, is there was a bust in the owner furnished equipment item that we found after we'd gotten board approval. So we had a $95 million budget approved, and then we found a $1.5 million bust in the FF&E costs. And so once we've been able to find ways to mitigate that and incorporate those additional costs into the project by savings in other areas. So as we've been tracking, it's been very good to have everyone on the team early, because we were able to make some of these changes very quickly and have those costs immediately tracked. So some of the images, this is what we had in January 14, and this is where we are 8 months later. Obviously, same kind of story applies. We're almost exactly identical in terms of what we have, and a large part of that was because we had a visual reference that we could point to and say to both the owner and the designers, this is where we are, this is what we have in the project, and we've been able to track very closely to that. So what I'm going to show now is a way that we use D-profiler and a way I've used D-profiler on a recent project. This is a much smaller project. It's a behavioral health project we are pursuing with the owner. We know that we have it if they decide to go forward. It's more whether the owner is going to be able to get the funding to do it. So this is essentially our program that we were given. This is a traditional program where they have the different zones and bed counts, square footages, total square footages, grossing factor, everything. So we've got basically departments and total square footages, and our designers came up with that in about 2 hours of work, and then they gave it to me, and in about another 4 hours we were able to generate this model. And using D-profiler, we were able to go in and let me get to There's all the rooms. And we were able to put in all the departments and all the rooms that they had specified in their program and generate a building based on this. So obviously, you know, this was with the design team in the room, and they were helping me, and but we were able to come up with an actual building with an actual site plan. Very, very basic, but we could show the owner very quickly, this is a concept of what your building can look like. We generated this from start to finish, from them giving us the information in the morning. The next day we were able to give them a fully detailed estimate with a full breakdown of, you know, if you want to know how much acoustical ceiling you have in it, we've got that. You know, we've got everything in the project, detailed line items. We can give them a finished schedule of every room. We can give them full exterior shots in terms of mix of materials and things like that, and able to do that very, very quickly. And that's solely because we're able to sit down and work as an integrated team in a very in-depth profiler and get a lot of information out very, very quickly. One of the other tools that we use, we're using this tool. It's called a symbol. It is a way to tie your Revit models into an estimating. It's an estimating tool for Revit, essentially. What all that it does is basically give us quantities and changes in the project. So you basically go into Revit and or you can have the architect upload the model to a symbol, and then it basically takes the data from the Revit model and outputs quantities for you of every component in the project. So we've got air returns, casework, you know, doors. You've got everything that's in that project, and it gives you quantities, sizes, everything that goes with it. The biggest tool that we use out of this, you can actually tie estimating to it, and we are trying to do that. But the biggest thing is this comparison tool. So we can actually take versions of the model, upload it to a symbol, and then once it finishes loading, we can show changes that have occurred. So you can show variances that have added, items that were removed, items where they've changed the type. So they've gone from, say, the wall is still there, but they've gone from a non-rated to a rated partition, something like that. And so we can show where those have changed, where the quantities changed. So if they've just added something or changed the square footage on change the sheetrock layer from 1 to 2, that's just a quantity change. They'll show that. Or if they've changed both type and quantity. So if the wall they've taken and increased the size and changed it from a non-rated to a rated partition, and you can see all that. And that has been a very powerful tool for us. We are actually tracking monthly changes in the Revit models now, and we're able to quickly grab onto the pieces that have changed, or scope that has been added, or scope that has been deleted. And it gives you a nice visual tool if our internet ever connects it, that you can both show an owner and show the design team. So this project, this is all so early in development. We're expecting to see a lot of these changes, but you can see everything in green are things that they've added. So they've added casework, they've added, they're obviously adding electrical fixtures and things like that. So as the design progresses, as you get more detailed in your design process, hopefully a lot of this green will go away, and it would be more that you wouldn't really see many changes. But then you can visually show them as well, and you can filter on that. So that's a way we're able to use BIM very early in the process to track changes on the project. So, but as far as BIM, that's all I've got for BIM and estimating. So if we have any questions, I don't know if Holly has received any. So if there are any questions, feel free to shoot them in. But that's pretty much our process here for integrated projects and how we use the profiler. how we use some other BIM tools.